Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Sleeping Beauty and other stories. The Sea King's Gift. There was once a fisherman who was called Mate. He lived by the shores of the big sea where he lived by the shore of the big sea. Where else could he live? He had a wife called May. Could you find a better name for her? In winter they dwelt in a little cottage by the shore, but in spring they flitted to a red rock out in the sea and stayed there the whole summer until it was autumn. The cottage on the rock was even smaller than the other. It had a wooden bolt instead of an iron lock to the door, a stone hearth, a flagstaff, and a weathercock on the roof. The rock was called Atolla. It was not much larger than the marketplace of a town. Between the crevices there grew a little rowan tree and 4 alder bushes. Heaven only knows how they ever came there. Perhaps they were brought there by the winter storms. Besides, there flourished some tufts of velvety grass, some scattered seeds, 2 plants of the yellow herd called tansy, 4 of a red flower, and a pretty white one. The treasures of the rock consisted of 3 roots of garlic, which May had put in a cleft. Rock walls sheltered them on the north side, and the sun shone on them on the south. This does not seem much, but it sufficed May for a herb plot. All good things go in threes, so Matt and his wife fished for salmon in the spring, for herring in summer, and for cod in winter. When on Saturdays the weather was fine and the wind favorable, they sailed to the nearest town, sold their fishes, and went to church on Sunday. But it often happens for weeks at a time they were quite alone on rock Atolla and had nothing to look at except their little yellow-brown dog, which bore the grand name of Prince. Their grass tufts, their bushes and blooms, the sea bays and fish. A stormy sky and the blue-white crested waves, for the rock lay far away from the land. There were no green islets or human habitations for miles around. Only here and there appeared a rock of the same red as Atolla, that sprinkled day and night with the ocean spray. Maddie and May were industrious, hard-working folk, happy and contented in their poor hut, and they thought themselves rich, weren't they, able to salt as many casks of fish as they required for winter, and yet still have some left over which to buy tobacco for the old man, and a pound or 2 of coffee for his wife, with plenty of burned corn and chicory in it. Besides that, they had bread, butter, fish, a beer cask, and a buttermilk jar. What more did they require? All would have gone well had not May have been possessed with a secret longing which never let her rest, and this was how she could manage to become the owner of a cow. What would you do with a cow? Asked Matt. She could never swim so far, and our boat was not large enough to bring her over here. And even if we had her, we have nothing to feed her on. We have 4 alder bushes and 16 tufts of grass, rejoined May. Of course, laughed Matt. We also have 3 plants of garlic. Garlic would be fine for feeding her. Every cow likes salt herring, rejoined his wife. Even Prince is fond of fish. That may be, said her husband. Methinks she would soon be a dear cow if we had to feed her on salt herring. All very well for Prince, who fights with the gulls over the last morsel. Put the cow out of your head, mother. We are very well off as we are. May sighed. She knew that her husband was right, but she could not give up the idea of a cow. The buttermilk no longer tasted as good as usual in the coffee. She thought of sweet cream and fresh butter and how there was nothing in the world to be compared with them. One day, as Matt and his wife were cleaning herring on the shore, they heard Prince barking. And soon there appeared a gaily painted boat with 3 men in it, steering towards the rock. They were students on a boating excursion and wanted to get something to eat. "Bring us a pudding, good mother," they cried to May. "Ah, if only I had such a thing," sighed May. "A can of fresh milk then," said the students, but it must not be skimmed." "Yes, if only I had it," sighed the old woman, still more deeply. "What, have you got a cow?" May was silent. This question struck her to the heart that she could not reply. "We have no cow," Matt replied, "but we have some good smoked herring. We can only cook them in a couple of hours." "All right, then, that will do," said the students, as they flung themselves down on a rock while 50 silvery white herring were turned on the spit in front of the fire. "What's the name of this little stone in the middle of the ocean?" asked one of them. "Atolla," answered the old man. "Well, you should want for nothing when you live in the Sea King's dominion." Matt did not understand. He had never read about it and knew nothing of the sea gods of old. But the students proceeded to explain to him. "Ah," said they, "is a mighty king who lives in his dominion of Atolla, and had a rock at the bottom of the sea, and possesses besides a treasure of good things. He rules over fish and animals of the deep. He has the finest cows and the swiftest horses that ever chewed grass at the bottom of the ocean. He who stands well with Adi is soon as a rich man, but one must beware in dealing with him, for he is very changeful and touchy. Even a little stone thrown into the water might offend him. Then he takes back his gift. He stirs up the sea into a storm and drags the sailors down to the depths. Ati also owns the fairest maidens who bear the train of his queen Wellamos, and at the sound of the music they comb their long flowing locks which glisten in the water." "Oh," cried Matt, have your worships really seen all that?" "We have as good as seen it," said the students. "It is all printed in a book, and everything printed is true." "I'm not sure of that," said Matt, and he shook his head. But the herring were now ready, and the students ate enough for 6 and gave Prince some cold meat, which they happened to have in this boat. Prince sat on his hind legs with delight and mewed like a pussy cat. When all was finished, the students handed Matt a shining silver coin and allowed him to fill his pipe with special tobacco. Then they thanked him for his kind hospitality and went on their journey, much regretted by Prince, who sat with a woeful expression and whined on the shore as long as he could see a flip of the boat's white sail in the distance. May never uttered a word, but thought all the more. She had good ears and had laid the heart of the story about Atai. How delightful, thought she to herself. She possesses a fairy cow. How delicious every morning and evening to draw milk from it, and yet have no trouble about feeling, and to keep a shelf near the windows for dishes of milk and puddings. But this will never be my luck." "What are you thinking of?" asked Matt. "Nothing," said his wife, but all the time she was pondering over some magic rhyme she had heard in her childhood from an old lame man, which were supposed to bring luck in fishing. "What if I were to try?" thought she. Now this was Saturday, and on Saturday evening Matt never set the hair net, for he did not fish on Sunday. Towards the evening, however, the wife said, "Let us the herring net just once." "No," said her husband, "it is a Saturday night." "Last night was so stormy and we caught so little," urged his wife. "Tonight the sea is like a mirror, and with the wind in its direction, the herring are drawing towards land. But there are streaks in the northwest sky, and the prince was eating grass this evening," said the old man. "Surely he has not eaten my garlic," exclaimed the old woman. "No, but there will be enough weather by tomorrow at sunset," rejoined Matt. "Listen to me," said his wife. "We will only set only one net close to the shore, and then we shall be able to finish our half-filled cask which will spoil if it stands open so long. The old man allowed himself to be talked over, and so they rode out with the rest. When they reached the deepest part of the water, she began to hum the words of the magic rhyme, altering the words to suit the longings of her heart. Oh, at he with the long, long beard, who dwelleth in the deep blue sea, finest treasures I have heard, and glittering fish I belong to thee. The richest pearls beyond compare are stored up in thy realm below, and ocean cows so sleek and fair feed on the grass in thy green meadow. Kings of the waters far and near, I ask not of thy golden store, I wish not jewels of pearls to wear, nor silver either ask I for, but one is odd and even is two. So give me a cow, sea king so bold, and in return I'll give to you a slice of the moon and the sun's gold. What's that you're humming? Asked the old man. Oh, only the words of an old rhyme that keep running in my head, answered the old woman, and she raised her voice and went on. Oh, at he with a long, long beard, who dwellest in the deep blue sea, 1,000 cows are in thy herd, I pray thee give one unto me. That's a stupid sort of song, said Matt. What else should one beg of the king of the sea but fish? But such songs are not for Sunday. His wife pretended not to hear him and sang the same tune for all the time they were on the water. Matt heard nothing more as he sat and rowed the heavy boat while thinking of his cracked pipe and the fine tobacco. Then they returned to the island and soon after went to bed. But neither Matt nor Maddie could sleep a wink. The one thought of how he had profaned Sunday, and the other of Autie's cow. About midnight, the fisherman sat up and said to his wife, Dost thou hear anything? No, said she. I think the twirling of the weather clock on the roof bodes ill, said he. We shall still have a storm. Oh, it's nothing but your fancy, said his wife. Matt lay down, but soon rose again. The weather clock is speaking now, said he. Just fancy. Go to sleep, said his wife, and the old woman tried to. For the third time, he jumped out of bed. Oh, how the weathercock is roaring at the pitch of his voice, as if it had fire inside it. We are going to have a tempest. Let's bring in the net. Both rose. The summer night was as dark as if it had been in October. The weathercock screeched, and the storm was raging in every direction. As they went out, the sea lay around them as white as snow, and the spring was dashed right over the Fisher hut. In all his life, Matt had never remembered such a night. To launch the boat and put in the sea to rescue the net was a thing not to be thought of. The fisherman and his wife stood aghast on the doorstep, holding on by fast the doorpost, while the foam splashed over the faces. Did I not tell thee that there is no luck in Sunday fishing? Said Max sulkily, and his wife was frightened that she never even once thought of Audie's cows. As there was nothing to be done, they went in. Their eyes were heavy for lack of slumber, and they slept as soundly as if there had not been such a thing as an angry sea roaring furiously around their lonely dwelling. When they awoke, the sun was high in the sky. The tempest had ceased, and only the swell of the sea rose in silvery heavings against the red rock. What can that be? Said the old woman as she peeped out the door. It looks like a big seal, said Maddie. As sure as I live, it's a cow, exclaimed May, and certainly it was a cow, a fine red cow, fat and flourishing, looking as if it had been fed for all its days on spinach. It wandered peacefully up and down the shore, and never so much as looked at the poor little tufts of grass, as if it despised such fare. Matt could not believe his eyes, but a cow she seemed, and a cow she was found to be, and when the old woman began to milk her, every pitcher and pan was soon filled with most delicious milk. The old man troubled his head in vain as to how she came there. Sally forth to seek for his lost net. He had proceeded far. When he found it cast upon the shore, and so full of fish that not a mesh was available. "It's all very well to possess a cow," said Matt as he cleaned the fish, "but what are we going to feed her on?" "We shall find some means," said his wife, and the cow found the means herself. She went out and cropped the seaweed, which grew in great abundance near the shore, and always kept in good condition. Everyone, Prince alone excepted, though she was a clever beast. But Prince barked at her, for now he had a rival. From that day, the Red Rock overflowed with milk and puddings, and every net was filled with fish. Matt and May grew fat on fine living, and daily became richer. She turned quantities of butter, and he turned 2 men to help him in his fishing. The sea lay before him like a big fish tank, out of which he hold as many as he required, and the cow continued to fend for himself. In autumn, when Matt and May went ashore, the cow went to sea, and in spring, when they returned to the rock, there she stood awaiting them. "We shall acquire a better house," said May, as the following summer. "The old one is too small for ourselves and the men." "Yes," said Matt. So he built a large cottage with a real lock in the door and a storehouse for fish as well. And he and his men caught such quantities of fish that they sold tons of salmon, herring, and cod. "I am quite overworked with so many folks," said May. "A girl to help me would not come amiss." "Get one then," said her husband, and they hired a girl. Then May said, "We have too little milk for these folks. Now that I have a servant, with the same amount of trouble as she could look after the cows." "All right then," said her husband, somewhat provoked. "You can sing a song to the fairies." This annoyed May, but nevertheless she rode out to sea on Sunday night and sang as before. "O Ahti, with a long, long beard, who dwellest in the deep blue sea, 1,000 cows are in thy herd. I pray thee give 3 unto me." And the following morning, instead of 1, 3 cows stood on the island. They all ate seaweed and fended for themselves like the first one. "Art thou satisfied now?" said Matt to his wife. "I should be quite satisfied," said his wife, "if only I had 2 servants to help. If I had finer clothes. Don't you know that I'm addressed as Madam?" "Very well," said her husband. So May got several servants and clothes fit for a great lady. Everything would be perfect now if we only had a little better dwelling for summer. "You might build us a 2-story house and fetch us soil to make a garden. Then you might make a little arbor up there to let us have a sea view. And we might have a fiddler to fiddle us of an evening, and a little streamer to take us to church in the stormy weather," she declared. "Anything more?" asked Matt, but he did everything that his wife wished. The rock, Atolla, became so great, and May so great, that all the sea urchins and herring were lost in wonderment. Even Prince was fed on beefsteaks and cream cones till at last he was as round as a butter jar. "Are you satisfied now?" asked Matt. "I shall be quite satisfied," said May, "if only I had 30 cows. At least the numbers were required for such a household." "Go to the fairies," said Matt. His wife set out in the new steamer and sang to the Sea King. Next morning, 30 cows stood on the shore, all food for themselves. "Knowest thou, good man, that we are far too cramped on this wretched rock, and where I mean to find room for so many cows? There is nothing to be done but to pump out the sea," replied Matt. "Rubbish," said his wife. "Who can pump out the sea?" "Try with the new steamer. There's a pump on it." May knew that her husband was only making fun of her, but her mind was set upon the same subject. I never could pump the sea out, thought she, but perhaps I could fill it up if I were to make a big dam. I might heat up in stones and make our island as big again. May loaded her boat with stones and went out to sea. The fiddler was with her and fiddling so finely that Ati and Wellamos and all the sea's daughters rose to the surface of water to listen to the music. "What is that shining so brightly in the waves?" asked May. "That is sea foam glinting in the sunshine," answered the fiddler. "Throw out the stones," said May. The people in the boat began to throw out the stones, splash, 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 right and left onto the foam. One stone hit the nose of Wellmo's chief lady in waiting. Another scratched the sea queen herself on the cheek. A third plumped close to Addie's head and tore off half the sea king's beard. And then there was a commotion in the sea. The waves bubbled and bubbled like boiling in a teapot. "Whence comes the gust of wind?" said May. And as the spoke, the sea opened and swallowed the steamer. May sank to the bottom like a stone, but stretching out her arms and legs, she rose to the surface, where she found the fiddler's fiddle and used it as a float. At that same moment, she saw close behind her the terrible head of Adi, and he only had half a beard. "Why did you throw stones at me?" roared the Sea King. "Oh, your Majesty, it was a mistake. Put some bear grease on your beard, and I'll make it grow again." "Dame, did I not give you all you asked for? Nay, more." "Truly, truly, your Majesty. Many thanks for the cows." "Hey, well, where's the gold from the sun and the silver from the moon you promised me?" "Oh, your Majesty, they have been scattered day and night upon the sea, except when the sky is overcast," answered May slyly. "I'll teach you," roared the Sea King. With that, he gave the fiddler such a puff that it sent the old woman up like a skyrocket onto her island. There Prince lay, as famished as ever, then gnawing the bones of a crow. Ugh. There May sat in his raggy gray jacket, quite alone, on the steps of the old hut mending a net. "Heavens, mother," said he, "where are you coming from at such a whirlwind pace, and what makes you in such a drifting condition?" May looked around her amazed and said, "Where's our 2-story house?" "What house?" asked her husband. "Our big house, and the flower garden, and the men, and the maids, and the 30 beautiful cows, and the streamers, and everything else." "You're talking nonsense, mother," said he. "The students have quite turned your head, for you sang silly songs last evening while we were rowing, and then you cannot sleep early this morning. We had stormy weather during the night, and when it was past I did not wish to wake you, so rowed alone out to rescue the net." "But I've seen Adi," rejoined May. "You've been lying in bed, dreaming foolish fancies, mother, and then in your sleep you waked in the water." "But there was a fiddle," said May. "A fine fiddle. It is only an old stick." No, old woman. Another time we will be more careful. Good luck never attends fishing on a Sunday." May looked out at her Atola. Truly it looked the same as it always had. No signs or anything of her greatness, not cows or servants nor calves, no overflowing with fish of such miraculous abundance that now seemed only exist in her vision of them. Matt was laying his pipe as she gazed at him, as real as the little red light that grew from her remembrance of all that Addie had given her and then taken away. Sounds like he erased her husband's memories, too. She brushed her eyes with her hand as if to clear her sight, but all she could see was Prince, frolicking the bare beach as he ever was wont to do. The same tufts of herbs and reeds as ever, and Matt looked through narrow but twinkling eyes as the wind whistled around the clock and the old weathercock creaked through the roof. Oh, well, she thought. Even if she was only dreaming, how nice it was to have all that fresh cream. And as she gazed, the sea boiled and bubbled as it had when Audie first appeared. The foam befrothed and gleamed, but the light shining on it was the only fraction of the sun as it lowered itself in the sky before disappearing into the sea. And that's the end of that story, and that's the end of the book. I hope you enjoyed that, so see you next time. Goodbye.